Y'all are not used to seeing my voice, or hearing my voice or seeing my face, but video is something I've been wanting to do for a long time, and so I'm gonna start doing it. And it might not be obvious that from my website, which is all written communication, that I'm really not a very good communicator, and I'm really confident in my written word. I'm actually very introverted, or I don't want to necessarily say introverted, but I would definitely say maybe self-objective to a fault. And so one of the reasons that I've not done videos before is that I've gotten really obsessed with making it perfect. You know, looking perfect, or having the perfect setting, or having the perfectly written out thing of what I'm going to talk about. But I really am going to try to relax about all of that and just give you guys kind of the content that I would want if I was going through, or like when I was going through what you're going through now, or if I was going through that today. I really personally like video content, something I can listen to when I'm, you know, I don't know, driving or doing something else, instead of having to actively read. And so, yeah, this is going to be very imperfect. I'm young, I have a shitty apartment, and I just got back from the gym, but I'm focusing on the fact that I'm here trying to help y'all, and that's what it's going to be. So, and I'm also going to be cooking dinner. But what I really wanted to talk about is, let's see. Okay, what I really wanted to talk about today was this kind of idea that I've been hearing a lot from y'all about going crazy or being schizophrenic. And I really, it kind of surprises me, because it's not that I didn't feel that way when I was first going through my bad trip. It's more that I'm surprised about the pervasiveness of kind of this idea of schizophrenia as a result of a bad trip. And there are some, I mean, it's just so pervasive. Like, I get so many people so worried about this that I really have to wonder, where does it come from? Where is this idea that you're suddenly a schizophrenic person? Where does that come from? Where in our society does that originate? And I really don't know. I know that's not particularly helpful, but I have to think that maybe it comes from some kind of 1960s media thing, or people's parents have said that, or I really am at a loss for what the origin of the whole schizophrenia thing is. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that schizophrenia is something that is a word and a disorder that gets tossed around a lot, but people don't necessarily know on a actual, like, people know what, I don't know, high blood pressure is, or people can generally know what depression is, but I think a lot of people are kind of, I don't want to say in the dark about what schizophrenia is, but it's kind of like this big scary word that gets thrown around and sounds really bad and sounds really vague and really awful, but we throw it around a lot of times without knowing exactly what it means. And for me personally, I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a therapist, I'm just a person who I would maybe consider myself like a armchair psychologist, or like a hobbyist therapist, if you could even say that. But it's something I want to do is kind of sit down with a psychologist and talk through some of these ideas, because I think it would be really beneficial for y'all, especially those who really do worry about it. I just think that the fear comes from a societal place and a societal like media story thing, because there's so many stories about psychedelics and what they can do to you that are really kind of unfounded and kind of come from these people in the 1960s who wanted, and 70s, who really wanted to shut down people's interest in exploring psychedelics and the research that was going on. And I'm gonna provide a link to a really good book about all of that I've read, about the research and everything, and how it kind of just randomly got shut down one day because people, you know, that's a topic for, that's a whole nother topic. But the basic gist of it is that we need to examine where this idea is coming from. If you're feeling like if you're feeling like you're going crazy or becoming schizophrenic, and you really have an understanding of what schizophrenia is, and you really do think that you've had those symptoms and you've been evaluated by a psychologist or a psychiatrist or someone who has seen schizophrenics before and really knows what they're talking about, okay, then maybe you do. Maybe you do have schizophrenia. But I feel like that's the very rare case. And I feel like for most of us, we're simply dealing with what I would call the symptoms of an unsettling or traumatic event, which sometimes can will border on an actual trauma. And that's also a topic for, I could talk about that for hours. But if you really can't shake the worry that you're schizophrenic, go to a psychologist, go to a psychiatrist and have them evaluate you. Go to somebody who specializes in schizophrenia, because there are definitely psychologists who do, and psychologists who could tell you very quickly after talking to you for, you know, an hour or something, whether or not they see those kinds of symptoms within you. And 99 times out of 100, it's not going to be relevant to you in your life. It's simply a concern, and one which I would consider to be really missing the point of your trip. This is something that I say a lot, where I believe that for all of y'all, even though it's terrible right now, and even though it's really hard, and even though you think, how could this ever be for any reason other than to make me miserable, I really do believe that for each and every one of you, your trip happened for a reason, which may not be clear to you right now. And if you don't want to view that, you don't have to even view that from a metaphysical or religious or spiritual perspective. It's just kind of the fact that, you know, you've had this experience. It's not going to go away. You can't turn back time. And you have to make the choice. You have to make the choice of whether or not you're going to let it become a positive thing in your life, or let it become a negative thing. And I think that freaking yourself about schizophrenia is letting it become a negative thing, and kind of spiraling into that sense that this horrible thing has happened to you, and now you have some disorder that's never going to go away, and you're kind of just stuck for life. I mean, how depressing is that? And you can tell me all day long that how hard it is, how bad you feel, and I know, I've been there. And I had no guidance from anybody who had been there before. And I literally thought I was constantly paranoid every single day that I was gonna die because of the level of anxiety I had. I mean, literally every day death was a reality for me. Not because anything was physically wrong with me, but because of the unsettledness and terror that had been introduced into my psyche and my heart through that experience. And maybe, you know, if I went to some random particular psychologist, it's possible that they could have said maybe I was a little bit schizophrenic. I mean, who else thinks that every day they have a possibility to die, and that they might, I mean, I even stopped eating cooked food for a while because I was so paranoid that I was going to have an allergic reaction and that my throat was going to close up, and that is something that has never happened to me before. It's not going crazy. It's nothing beyond having extreme terror introduced into your psyche, into your head, and into your heart. Extreme terror, extreme uneasiness, extreme, the feeling of extreme unsafety that is introduced into your body, into your psychology, into your brain chemistry. And because of how overwhelming the experience is, it doesn't leave. It remains in your system, and it's not fully processed. And therefore you have this kind of recurring, it's like it's on red alert because it hasn't gone down yet. It's like you had, I mean, this is a terrible example, but like, imagine a situation in which there's a building and there's a shooter in the building, and the people are so scared that they completely lock themselves down, and they're so scared that no one goes to out and to the halls and to the rooms to make sure that the shooter is gone. And so instead of neutralizing the threat, or instead of knowing that the threat is neutralized, it's just every moment of every day, or every time they hear something, it's, oh my gosh, there's the shooter. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna die. Oh my gosh, my throat's gonna close up. My heart is gonna beat out of my chest. Every moment, those same kinds of fears and feelings that you were feeling during that bad trip are resurfacing and kind of going on this infinite loop until you resolve them. And what I basically just described is the concept of trauma, which in psychology is something completely different than the kind of trauma we think of, like emergency room. You know, the trauma center is different than the kind of trauma that I'm talking about. And this is not my concept. This is a really broad and well talked about concept. I'll definitely, as I'm gonna keep up doing videos, I'll definitely do a video about that soon, because it's a huge part of what we're all going through when we talk about this bad trip stuff. And it's the source of that feeling like you're going crazy. And the good news, sorry, the good news is that it can be reversed, and you can flush that sense of terror out of your system. But the first step in doing that is not getting yourself in this loop where you're constantly essentially just flipping yourself out over and over again when any little random, any noise, you think, oh, it's the shooter, it's the threat, I'm dying. You're constantly freaking yourself out, and I'm kind of talking about two different things there. That traumatic resurfacing is very involuntary. That's the trauma operating in your system. But this constant, every time something like that happens, or every time you don't feel completely normal, you're creating a mental loop that's going back to this one thing and saying, oh, schizophrenia, oh, crazy, oh, schizophrenia, instead of really seeing it for what it is, that I went through something extremely traumatic. I'm shaken up. I have trauma symptoms, maybe if that's your case. And that doesn't mean that I'm broken. It means that now I have something that I need to work through. And I have to take this day by day. But I'm not going to let it win. I'm going to win. And I think, for me personally, that was always there was no other way to think about the situation than that. I had this experience, and I started having panic attacks. I started feeling very, everything was different. My life was totally different. I was not the same person. But I could not let that consume me. I couldn't just lay down and accept that. I had to fight. And more importantly than anything, I had to decide. It's only a decision that you can make. But you have to decide that you're going to fight the fight, and you're going to not get back to normal. The point is not to get back to normal. The point is to become a new and better person through this experience. And it's very hard. It is very hard. It's probably going to be one of the hardest things that you've ever had to do, but it's one of the most rewarding things that you'll ever do, because if you do it right, if you approach it in the right way, you will grow so much. You will develop, as far as your heart, your wisdom, your confidence in your personal strength is going to blossom, and you'll probably end up working through a lot of the past traumas, which I very often see get brought up with these bad trips. I mean, that's exactly what happened to me. So when I hear people talking about, and it's constantly, and I'm not saying this that if you've emailed me or messaged me in some way, or if you're thinking this, I'm not saying it to make you feel bad or to make you feel like you're a dodo or something. But constantly, if anything, it should make you feel less alone. Constantly, I get messages, I get inquiries, people asking me, here's my story, am I going crazy? I can't shake the fear that I'm going crazy. And I feel for those people so much, because I want them to have the faith in themselves, or the faith in whatever it is that they believe in, that they're going to be okay in the long run, that this is very hard, but don't give up like that. Just saying, oh my gosh, I'm going crazy, that's giving up. You're missing the point. I mean, that's just the hard and fast truth, is that you're missing the point. When you let yourself get in that emotional spiral of worrying that you're going crazy. So, I guess the takeaway that I would say is the whole point of this video, if you really can't shake the fear that you're going crazy or that you're schizophrenic or you think you actually might be schizophrenic now, which I really doubt, go see a psychologist. Just go be evaluated. And I wouldn't, and tell them about your experience and what you're going through and why you feel this way. And I almost guarantee you that they will not diagnose you as a schizophrenic. Second of all, just you have to make a decision. You have to make a decision about what this is going to mean for you and how you're going to proceed. Even if you're just totally consumed by anxiety right now, which you probably are, you just have to make the decision that despite all of that, despite of this darkness, this weird prison that you find yourself in, you're going to find a way out. And you're going to find a way to an even better version of yourself. And you may not know what that way is right now, and I hope that I can help you find it. It's different for every single person. But you have to make the decision that only you can make, that you're going to find your way out. And that's really the real point of this. The real point of this is to grow, to discover who you really are, to heal past traumas and past negative feelings, and to really shed your skin and grow. You know, it's the kind of chop that separates you from the old person and kind of forces you to go out and become a new person. And you have to decide that that's what this is going to be about. So yeah, that's all for this. I hope it made sense. I'm just kind of talking. But yeah, I hope this helps someone, and I'm going to try to be making more of these kinds of videos. So y'all have a good night.